To me, Len, it's the best product in sports, the sports industry today. To me, it's the best product. Bar none. I don't think any product is better than FIFA World Cup right now, or FIFA, or soccer, or football, or whatever you want to call it in general.
Yeah, I would say you have a good argument, because soccer is the world's most popular sport by far. It's not even close.
You just can't trust the Iranian regime that's there right now. The people that are running that country right now, have held that country hostage. They don't have good intentions no matter what we do. So I think that this is telling on them, and it's giving Trump a get out of jail free, not Trump, the America and its allies a get out of jail free card to finally go, these guys don't want anything. Why is Iran asserting control over international waters? Because that's international waters, right? It doesn't belong to them, right?
All waters is essentially international.
So at what point does nobody sit there and go, wait a minute, they're claiming all of this stuff and saying it's our responsibility and we're controlling the Strait of Hormuz? What I'm sorry, but who gave them the authority for them to say that they have control over the Strait of Hormuz? When did they get that authority?
Objectively true that the United States and Israel attacked Iran. Iran did not attack the United States.
But wait a minute,
they didn't attack the United States.
No, they didn't. But they've been attacking Israel since they did the
America first. Israel's not us. Here's the reality. The Hezbollah is a proxy for Iran, and Israel is a proxy for the United States. That's just
that's a good one, Len. That's a good. Wait, actually, you know what? There's a lot of people that would say it's the other way around, but that's a good
point. Good point. Do you think that it's the United States' responsibility to involve ourselves in the affairs of other countries, even though they inflict atrocities and terror on their people and other people around? Do you think it's our responsibility to police that?
The Mandami thing that's going on right now, this is very interesting. But at the same time, I think it's very obvious, because I think these are cycles, and there's a lot of hysteria around it where it's like, oh my God, and if you go back and you study, these are cycles. The extremist cycles like this happen often.
The moment capitalism starts to fail and socialism starts to thrive is the same moment that incentivizes people to stop innovating. And the moment innovation stops, as a society, we start to decline.
Look, the only king that all these people need is the king called Jesus Christ. Like, they need to go find that king, or Mohammed, or whatever your king is, and go be that king. Go be, right? But for me, it's Jesus Christ. So go find that. Go find a non-human benevolence, because you can't rely. I'm saying the word right?
Benevolence. Yeah, benevolence.
You cannot rely on a human being. You can't. I'm sorry. You just can't. You can't, because they're selfish. So that is number one.
Selfish.
Yes, because communism and socialism doesn't create equality for people. It creates slavery for people. It creates restrictions for people.
Politicians do this all the time. They only tell us what they want us to hear, because they understand that the overwhelming majority of us will not take the time to fact check them, to research, to figure out our own position based on our own set of beliefs, values, and assumptions. When you're not educated about your own position, you align with who your hero is, and you change the narrative to justify how you feel about a policy based on that person's stance. My ultimate goal, as I mentioned earlier, is I want to know truth, man. I want to seek truth. I don't want to just be right for argument's sake.
So when a Mandami gets up here and says, happy rent control, you're absolutely right, Len. That is propaganda, because that's just like, I have a cold, here's some Vicks NyQuil. That just masks the symptom.
Welcome to the family office. Planning for the people who matter most.
Charlin.
Always, man. So, considering everything with the World Cup, man, it's been a worldwide phenomenon. Have you been following it at all, or what?
It's been absolutely World Cup mania for me. And I'll tell you a World Cup saga right here in a minute as I say this, but my kids are really into it. So I've watched it a lot. And I was watching the game this morning, and it was Japan versus Brazil. I don't even know who won yet because I had to go do some other stuff between coming here to see you today. Well, to conversate with you about the world events that are happening that I think I'm getting ready to win the bet. But anyways, we'll come to that in a minute.
See.
We'll come to that in a minute, right? But a lot to do with their Aunt Veronica and their Uncle Noah because they were big into soccer when they were watching them a lot during summers. But I think it's absolutely crazy. And the biggest thing that I've noticed about watching it is the fact that there's just no ethnicity dominance in the sport. Like every country plays a sport. It doesn't matter where you're from, everybody, and it's just absolutely electrifying. I think it's just, to me, Len, it's the best product in sports, the sports industry today. To me, it's the best product. I don't think any product is better than FIFA World Cup right now, or FIFA, or soccer, or football, or whatever you want to call it in general.
Yeah, I would say you have a good argument because soccer is the world's most popular sport by far. It's not even close. And I think I told you a story, but when I was in Brazil during the World Cup, man.
You went to Brazil during World Cup?
I did. So the World Cup was taking place. Brazil was in it, but the World Cup was not in Brazil.
Oh, okay. Because that's got to be absolutely amazing.
Oh, too, that would be bonkers. Yeah. So I was
We're gonna go then. Next time
I was there. I loved it.
Brazil next time we're gonna go.
Oh, right. No, not without our wives.
Of course, I wouldn't suggest that at all. I would never suggest that at all, Len. Argentina.
Maybe Argentina, but definitely not Brazil. But anyway, man.
No fly zone.
Soccer, exactly. Soccer is a ridiculously popular sport. And I think one of the reasons why is because pretty much every country plays it. And so I remember one time I was in Senegal and the soccer team was getting ready to play a different team. I think it was like Morocco or something like that. And what was crazy is I was around where the buses were departing to go to the airport. And along the way where the bus route was going, there were people with whistles and noisemakers. And it was just a festive affair. And the thing about soccer players, man, they're essentially rock stars, man, because everybody knows who they are. Everybody follows the sport. I don't care if you're male, female, young, old. Soccer is one of the unifying sports within countries and amongst different countries. And so that's one of the reasons why I love it. I'm not that much of a soccer fan except for during World Cup, or if I go live, like when we went to El Clasico. How great was that game, man, between Ronaldo and Messi?
Amazing.
In Barcelona, which is
amazing.
Crazy.
No, we saw it in Madrid. We had to get on the train. Yeah, we got on the train, the high-speed train in Madrid, and then because we walked around in Madrid beforehand. And we saw it there.
Yeah,
because we had to leave our Barca gear behind.
That's right. But man, what an amazing event, right? I mean, just all the chants and the cheers. Like I've been to a Laker game a few times, and what's crazy about that?
A real Lakers game during the 2000s, like the early 2000s.
Well, I've been throughout like every era. So like I've been during the Magic era, during the Kobe era, and during the LeBron era. And I'll tell you, man. It's just different. Magic, because I'm younger, you had Showtime Lakers, 5 championships during that time span. Like there was no other time. I mean, because that's really what made the Lakers what they are today was Magic and Kareem and Worthy and so on and so forth. But the point of bringing them up is that when you go to a Laker game, in Los Angeles, there's so many different distractions. You can go hiking, you can go surfing, you can go skiing, and you've got local basketball and football. There's so many distractions. And so because of that, when the Lakers play, it's like the crowd's not really into it. If they're losing, they're not into it at all. But the only time they're really into it is during playoffs or if they're winning. And it's just kind of humdrum and dry. And as a Laker fan, that embarrasses me to say that because in soccer, I don't care if they're up or down, the chants and the drums and the singing and the unity, it's just completely different, man. So for that reason, I really love soccer.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. If you watch that last game, the Turkey versus US game, That game was like, it was a great game, right? And you're like, and it didn't matter, right? It was like, oh, this is USA's B team. There was 9 swaps on the team. And then also Turkey, no matter what, even if they win, they're going home. But it mattered. It mattered so much to them. It was like, oh my God. But also at the same time, it mattered to the US team too to win. It was like, it was, like I said, such an amazing thing to watch because it was excitement regardless. And I just don't think you see a lot of that in a lot of other sports today as much as you see it in the soccer world, the FIFA world. I'm just going to say the FIFA world because I think it's just the best way to call it. But at any rate, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, people are fanatics all around in different sports, man, but soccer feels like it's unique because of the fact that it's a shared experience throughout the world. Like people recognize soccer culture. If you've been a part of it, you recognize it. So it was cool, man. I as great as that was, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is one thing I love about sports is that you can have teams that are from quote unquote countries that you're at war with, and on the field, none of it matters. During the Olympics, two nations could be fighting against each other. They can compete, and after that, they can hug it up as friends. And that's one thing I love about sports. And which brings me to Iran, had their team here in the United States. And I just wanted to get your perspective because you talked about it a little bit earlier. You said that you think your perspective is going to prevail. So what is your perspective right now that's going on in Iran between the United States and Iran?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. And I say that a lot, but I think it's very interesting because there's a book. If you've ever if you read a lot of books, there's a lot of times there's books recommended in books, right? Yes. And in The Laws of Success, Napoleon Hill mentions a lot of books, and one of them is a book called Observation. Right? It's called Observation, Every Man's University, I think is the name of the book. And it's this little book. And you read that book and then you start understanding that all you have to do is just make observations. You just have to sit back and watch because words are so mystifying and are so romantic, right? And they can make you feel such a certain way. But the reality is that I don't care how eloquent you sound or how good you look or any of that. I just want to see, right? So the eyes are always telling as far as actions, right? So I just sit back and I'm watching these things, and I thought that one of two things is going to happen. Either this is going to create some prosperity in the Middle East, and there's finally going to be, a coalition, and everybody's going to work together. And things are going to come together the way they ought to come together, the way everyone signals that they want to act, right? Everybody signals that we want harmony and peace and trade and all this great stuff. But the reality is when it all boils down to, we got to watch and see what you do. The other side of it was that I think Trump has set this up to be a get out of jail free card for America or its allies. And I think it's leaning more towards that way. And the reason why I'm saying that, Len, is because we have given, and I think by default, because I think the strategy is starting to tell a little bit here, Iran's only ace card is the Strait thing, the Strait. And I think that was a ruse because a lot of people make the argument and they say, well, this wasn't a problem beforehand. It was a problem. We just didn't know it was a problem. And they were going to do it. They already know. This is their leverage now, right? But it's not. What we're seeing here is we're seeing them be exposed. And what we're seeing here is we're seeing the people that are running that country, they're putting themselves on expose right now. And they are completely falling into the trap that was set. Every single thing that they said they weren't going to do and they promised they weren't going to do, they're doing it. And we haven't provoked them to do it. We haven't violated anything on our side. We've been actually lenient with our side more than any time. So I think what's telling here is that this was set up in a way to show everybody you just can't trust the Iranian regime that's there right now. The people that are running that country right now, have held that country hostage. They don't have good intentions no matter what we do. So I think that this is telling on them, and it's giving Trump a get out of jail free, not Trump, the America and its allies a get out of jail free card to finally go, these guys don't want anything. It's clear. It's making them look very bad. And if they're trying to do this to think that they're going to gain leverage or anything like that, they're done. They're dead in the water. They already know that. Everybody knows that. So the reality is starting to become very grim for that regime, because they are making themselves look very, very bad. And especially considering the fact that you have Pakistan in the middle of this. Pakistan wants this. Qatar wants this. Saudi Arabia wants this. All the Gulf nations want this to work, except for two of them, Israel and Iran. They don't want this to work. They never wanted this to work. But Iran right now is looking worse than anybody now, because what have we done? What have we done to make them go back on their word 4 times over now? See, so I think it's looking like it's a get out of jail free card for everybody, and it's going to strip them from power without any military force, because enough is enough now at this point, I think, is the way it's being looked at. It's just kind of the way I'm looking at it, Len. Where are you at with it?
I look at it, I see some of your points, and I understand where you're talking about the fact that the United States came into this and they set up a trap. What I don't understand is how to effectively evaluate this, looking at it through both lenses. And let me explain more clearly what I mean. The Iranians realized that the big bad America boogeyman is not as formidable to them from their perspective now than before. And the reason why is because they never exercised their leverage on the Strait of Hormuz. And so what the Iranians want specifically is they want control, and they want to be a player, because from their perspective, and again, I'm not suggesting this is my perspective. I'm trying to articulate their perspective. Their perspective is that, look, the United States is halfway across the world. They are engaging in hegemony, and they want to rule the entire world militarily and economically. We're in this region. We're a player, and 20% of the oil flows through our waterways, and we want to have control over that. And before, we were a little bit scared to exercise that control because of this big bad United States. But when they struck us, along with Israel, who drugged them into this war, we realized that this is asymmetrical. So all we have to do is to continue to create uncertainty in the Strait of Hormuz. And that is the leverage we have. And so that uncertainty is they can send a bomb to hit a ship, because the ship is not there to fight. So they're pretty much sitting ducks unless there's somebody there to protect them. And so now, because of the fact they have that control over ships coming and going, all the Iranians have to do is either turn the leverage on or turn the leverage off anytime they want. And so what that means specifically, Chris, is this. They understand, and I've said this before, but it bears repeating again. The Iranians, understand that Trump is in between a rock and a hard place. And here's why. It's still true that this is not a popular war, and he is going to lose the midterm elections. They understand that. The only way to really capture control is to send ground troops to take over that strait, and that would cost too many American lives. They're not going to do that. So when you said that there was a trap that was set, I think the trap backfired. And now I'll turn it over to you, and after I explain how I believe the trap that you're talking about backfired. Here was the trap. The Netanyahu sat down with Trump, and of course I'm oversimplifying it because I know there are more people involved, but just follow it.
Yeah.
So Netanyahu sat down with Trump and said, look, you went in and got Maduro lickety split in and out. You're good. No casualties. It was chef's kiss. It was great. You can do the same thing. In fact, we have intelligence. We're going to kill and take off the snake, and you'll be in and out in 2 weeks. And that didn't happen. And so when that didn't happen, that trap was set for the United States to get dragged into the war. Trump fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Now we're in this war. And the only thing the United States wants to do is to get out of there. And the Iranians know that. But you know what? All they have to do is say, okay, no problem. We'll have conversations over the next 60 days. We're not going to fire anything, but give us our $6 billion and let us have control over the strait and leave Hezbollah and the Houthis alone. We'll be good. And the United States are saying, wait, hold on. We were talking about enriched uranium. That's still on the table. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And the last thing that I'll say is to go back to the first thing you said at the beginning of this conversation. It's not about what we say. It's about what we do. And where the Iranians are is they're going to exercise actions, and everything that they've said they're going to do, they follow through on it. Do you want me to explain what I mean by that?
No. And because here's the problem.
Okay.
Here's the problem with the whole argument. It's ludicrous for you to even think that they have that leverage, because here's why. Who's going to wake up in the middle of the day or any day right now and look at this situation and go, why is Iran asserting control over international waters? Because that's international waters, right? It doesn't belong to them, right?
All waters is essentially international.
So at what point does nobody sit there and go, wait a minute, they're claiming all of this stuff and saying it's our responsibility and we're controlling the Strait of Hormuz. What I'm sorry, but who gave them the authority for them to say that they have control over the Strait of Hormuz? When did they get that authority? And why does no? Okay, but when did they take it? When did they
after
take it?
the United States and Israel attacked?
That's where I think you're wrong, Len. That's where I think you're wrong.
They didn't exercise it before,
right? But here's the thing: we knew they were going to do it. Everybody knew they were going to do it. And here's the other reality of it: if that is their strategy, it's not working, because oil is still down under $70 a barrel. So, well, $70.60 a barrel. So it's not working, because if there was uncertainty there, the market would sniff it out already, and the market would be responding with sky high prices. So that is propaganda that they have control and they can control the Strait of Hormuz, because the market clearly says that they don't. And Len, it's just like global warming. Banks put 100 and 200-year forecasts on risk assessments when they build stuff. They've never put that in apartment complexes that sit in low-lying areas like Florida and stuff or whatever. None of them have global warming as a risk factor in their analysis when they put the money out to build these projects, because it doesn't exist. So the fact that the market didn't jump to $95 a barrel with all this riffraff that's going on for the last 3 days, that tells you that it's propaganda. That tells you that it's not real. It's meant for them to, like I said, they're showing their true colors right now. The fact that they are seizing control of international waterways like that, that tells you their cards. They've played their ace card. They're done for in the water, because none of those Gulf countries, and furthermore, none of those Gulf countries are going to allow them to continue to do that, especially China. And here's the reality behind it at the end of the day, and then I'll throw it back over to you, Len.
Okay.
This hurts China and Russia and all those guys more than it hurts anybody. You really honestly think that China was going to play ball with Iran if it was the other way around? And China, because eventually it's going to lead to that. Eventually, you don't think China would come in there and aggressive and take over Iran? China doesn't want an unstable Iran just as much as the United States doesn't want an unstable Iran. None of them do. Nobody wants that. Not even the Iranian people that are being held hostage. So I see your point there, but to me, the Strait of Hormuz is open because the price of oil is down. That means that the strait is open. That means ships are going through it. And the fact that we haven't bombed the crap out of them yet, I think what you're seeing is pockets of insurgency, and they have control over resources still, because they can't even exercise a military campaign right now. It's just, to me, it's silly that anybody even thinks they have teeth anymore, because it's almost like nobody believes that the U.S. went in there and destroyed all these military assets. I don't buy that. That's just fake news. I think you're seeing pockets of wild insurgency that's creating instability, because there is the holdouts that don't want this to work. They're dead in the water. They have no money to pay their people. We haven't released any money to them. This is further hurting them. I just think it's propaganda. And if it is, like I said, the get out of jail free card, which is what it looks like, I think the U.S. walks away from this clean and everyone else inherits a problem. But I don't think it's going to end that way. I think you're seeing pockets of the wild extreme insurgency. And that's kind of what you see happening right now, because anybody can launch those drones. Len, it was 2 or 3 drones. That's not a military campaign. That's somebody shooting off illegal fireworks in your neighborhood.
And you're making my point for me. Here's the reason why. With a little bit of effort, because remember, what's at play is you gotta factor in the economics of this, Chris. And
I am though. Len.
Okay, but here's what I mean.
What's the price of gas?
Here's what I mean.
If you're going there.
I'm gonna go there in a second. But my first point is this: the moment the Iranians want to decide to close that strait, it doesn't take anything. Listen. Here's the reason why. Just like you said, with little fireworks and little drones, they can go in and drop off a little bomb on an oil tanker and blow that entire thing up to smithereens.
But that's not going to happen.
Yes, it can happen just like that.
That's making
the only reason why it hasn't happened. No, it's not. Okay, here's the reason. So insurance companies, you're an insurance guy. You understand this. Insurance deals with certainty and probability. Mm-hmm. The more uncertain and the lower the probabilities get, the lower they can determine prices. And so when they can't determine prices on a fixed high probabilistic way, they're going to increase prices to cover for that risk. So the more risky it becomes for those ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, the more expensive it's going to become for those ships from the standpoint of insurance. And so there's going to be a downward spiral of gas prices if the Iranians decided they want to exercise that control. So right now they're backing off. One little warning shot into a Korean vessel that goes by the Strait of the Oman part of it. Well, the reason why is because the Iranians want control of it. So the moment they decide that they want to continue making more problems for more ships to come through, they can flip that switch in a heartbeat. There's no issue there. So if the United States,
I agree with you,
follows through with the MOU and decides to withdraw, because that's one of the 14 points. If they withdraw, why would they even have an incentive? Why would the Iranians have an incentive to do less when the United States isn't there to be a watchdog? That's number one. Number two is, you mentioned China. China right now is sitting back because their tact historically, and especially within the last 30 years, as it relates to international tactics, has been diplomacy. You've never seen China be an aggressor outside of their borders. And so what's happening right now is China saying, look, United States, we condemn any of the attacks that you've made. Iran, you guys work it out with the United States because we want to have oil flow back to our country. But China understood this was going to happen. And so years and years ago, they stockpiled on oil. So they're not overly concerned about it, because while 60% of Iranians' oil is going to China, 20% of Iranians' oil is coming into China. So 80% of China's resources as it relates to oil is not Iranian dependent. So they're not going to be overly aggressive there because they're not totally reliant on Iranian oil. So when you say that, you know, we're completely in control, and the evidence of that is the gas prices, and this is propaganda, I don't see eye to eye with you about that, because all the Iranians have to do, flip a switch, send out a couple of drones, blow up a couple of tankers, insurance prices go sky high, and effectively the strait is closed down. And they can do that anytime they want. And that's the reason why, because like, it's not going to cost like billions and billions of dollars to launch this offensive. They don't have to go boots on the ground to close it up. It's a very simple process for them. So that's the reason why they have such an advantage.
Eventually, everybody hates the bully on the playground, Len.
Who's been the bully lately, though?
Iran is the bully. Look, everybody thinks that the bigger kid's the bully. Sometimes that's the case, Len. Look, what I mean by that is if Iran starts shooting off missiles at every Tom, Dick, and Harry in their neighborhood, it's only going to matter. Watch what happens, Len. when everyone calls the United States, like they always have historically, to say, please come be our police for us. Iran's acting up again, because eventually everyone's going to hate them. They're firing on everybody no matter what. And again, I understand. I agree with your point with, they're going to disrupt and all that stuff. If that was the case, then the prices would reflect in that point. Gas is about to be under $3 a gallon in Texas. It's $3.09 a gallon right now. That tells me it's been going down every day. So that tells me.
But you know why that is, though, right, Chris? You know why that is.
Well, yeah, because the price of oil is going down.
But I'm saying you know why the price of oil is going down. You know why. It's been relative stability, because once they announced the ceasefire and there's been a relatively low amount of kinetic warfare going on, the price of oil is going to reflect that. And so the straits partially opened up, so the price of oil is going to reflect
fully
that.
Open. The price of oil reflects a full open. Because
No. The strait's not fully open, Chris. It's not fully open. It's not.
If it was not fully open, then you would see that reflective in the price points, and you don't. You would see that.
It's a lagging indicator, Chris.
Okay. I'll give you that, but why would Iran want to kill Iran want to kill their biggest economic influx? I mean, that doesn't make any sense for me.
Because there's been sanctions from the United States historically since 1979. So I wonder
why. Why have we had it since 1979 though?
Because Iran hasn't played by the rules.
Okay. Look,
I'm not denying that, but what I'm saying, Chris, right now, they're at a unique inflection point. Iran is at a unique inflection point.
I don't see it. I don't see that.
Here's the reason why. Go look at the MOU. The MOU is very clear that if the points on the MOU is negotiated the way that the Iranians want to, I'm speaking from the perspective of the Iranians, $6 billion will be released right now. Sanctions will be released right now. And while the negotiations are happening over the course of the 60 days, because they're going to be meeting in Davos pretty soon.
Tomorrow. They're meeting tomorrow.
Exactly.
Doha, right?
Yeah, Doha. You're right. Doha. So if everything goes well and both sides agree to play ball and cease fire and all of that, what'll end up happening for the Iranians is the sanctions will be lifted and they're going to get $6 billion. And so life couldn't be better from their perspective, because it wasn't like that prior to the war. So it's actually going to end up working out quite well if the points on the MOU actually come through.
Isn't it a shame that no one is sitting here arguing at the fact that if that money gets released, none of it actually goes to the people that matter? Isn't that a shame that no one's arguing that point? Isn't it a shame that no one's even thinking about the fact that none of the money that's going to get released is going to go to anybody that it actually matters, that it's just going to continue to be this death cycle? Since 1978, it's been in a death cycle.
I agree.
And I know that there are other people on the other side. And I'm not saying we should go in there and be Captain Save a you know what, but at the same time, I don't see it working out very well for that regime. And I think that they are damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't at this point.
Wouldn't you agree? Okay, so to your point that the money won't get to the people, to me, so let's just say we're debating the merits of the effectiveness of the MOU. Wouldn't you agree that if the money in fact wasn't going to reach the people like it should, that it would be less of a reason to give them that money because they haven't had access to it before? And so now, by virtue of the United States and Israel provoking a war, at the end of it, you got to
be careful though when you say provoking, though, because you can't say they provoked a war, because Iran's been provoking a war since day one. So you can't say that they have provoked a war.
But then you're just excusing. Okay, but the fact is that is true, and it's objectively true that the United States and Israel attacked Iran. Iran did not attack the United States.
But wait a minute,
they didn't attack the United States.
No, they didn't. But they've been attacking Israel since they did the
America first. Israel's not us. America first.
Right. I understand that. But if they attacked France, don't you think we should get involved as a NATO ally?
Okay, but what I'm saying though, Chris,
I mean, under the merits of NATO, doesn't that mean we have to back them up? I mean, isn't that what that means?
Okay, but let me ask you this:
country, right?
Okay, did Iran attack Israel?
Yeah, they via its proxy.
Okay, so
isn't that the whole argument here? Back in that October thing when they came in and they parachuted into the festival and all that stuff.
Here's the reality.
Wasn't that the whole thing behind that?
Here's the reality. The Hezbollah is a proxy for Iran, and Israel is a proxy for the United States. That's just
that's a good one, Len. That's a good. Wait, actually, you know what? There's a lot of people that would say it's the other way around, but that's a good one.
Good point.
Look, here's the fact that remains, Len. I think they're playing games. We already knew they were going to play games. Trump plays chess, and these people also play some chess. And I think he's got him right where he wants him. And I think it's all going to end up in the joke that you played about the midterms. I think that's so funny. And here's another point on why I think it's such a joke too.
Can I ask you a question before you tell me? I want to hear what you say about the joke. So when you say that Trump is playing chess and he has them right where he wants them, what is it specifically, Chris, that the United States has that's an advantage given the fact that the United States went to war? How is this better now than before?
I think what it was is it's a rouge out, or it's to flush somebody out. And I think what happened was they were flushed out.
Okay, what do you mean by that? I want to follow you because I want to make sure we're arguing.
Because I think what ends up happening a lot in today's world, and it just seems to be that way from my perspective. Okay. And it seems to happen a lot, especially with this kind of stuff. And I think what's happening here is they are a bad actor, and everybody knows that because every president and every statesperson's been talking about them being a bad
100%
actor.
agree with that.
Okay. We also think that they're a bad actor because of their rhetoric, because that's a buzzword that a lot of people like to throw around.
Sure.
People don't even knew what that word was 20 years ago. Now everybody knows what it is. But at the same time, what's happening here is that we all knew these they were doing these things via these proxies. Okay. The bad actions. The actions are bad. The actions of the people running that country who have taken that country hostage, right? Okay. All this essentially did was just bring light to it, because what ends up happening a lot today is evil people are very covert. Evil people today aren't evil on the outside. They don't look evil. The villains of today are celebrated by a lot of people and are championed as non-villains. They are. And so what this does is it's kind of almost like the sweet person. It's like it's exactly like the battered wife symptom or scenario syndrome or scenario. I don't want to say syndrome. I want to say scenario where everyone thinks this husband is awesome and he's a guy and he's awesome and everything's great, but at the end of the day he's beating the crap out of his wife and is abusive, right? Almost like what's that movie? You know what I'm talking about? It's not Sleeping with the Enemy. Is it Sleeping with the Enemy? Is that the one? Julia Roberts? I
don't remember. That might be Sleeping with the Enemy. I think it's Sleeping with the Enemy. Okay.
It might be, right? The husband's totally abusive, but the outside everything is great.
Oh, yes, you're right.
That's the villains of today. The villains of today have figured out, like Karen Bass, that's a villain. Gavin Newsom is a villain. They figured out through the means of virtue signaling and NGOs and all these. I'm not saying Iran does this, but the bad guys have figured out in the same way anyways. They figured out how to make themselves look like the good guys. Okay. And what this essentially has done is it has flushed them out so that everybody on the world stage can see, look, Iran has never had a problem with Singapore, yet they're bombing the crap out of their boats. If we were truly at war and Iran doesn't have beef with anybody else, then they would only fire on us and our allies' ships when they went through. If they truly had control over that strait, they don't know who the hell they're firing at because they have no clue, because they're in the freaking Stone Age, Len. So realistically, all this is the last dying grasps of power from a dead, clerical, ancient regime that is taken a country hostage. Because when you look at the photos of this country before and after, it's a totally different country. It's a totally different country. And I may not know all the history here, but what I do know is that this regime, when it took power, Len, this regime, and I'm not saying this, I'm soapboxing or trying to defend anything, but this regime that can't be trusted, that event is exposing itself on the world stage now. All the ugliness that it's been doing is being exposed right now. And that's exactly what's happening here. Because at the end of the day, the U.S. is not going to have to do nothing, because all it's going to do is say, we're not doing anything. Look what they're doing to you without any beef. Because you don't want to know what the regime that runs this country did to all the citizens that helped it get elected back in 1978. As soon as they got elected, especially the women in that country, they all got rounded up and executed in public for it. Crazy, right? But see, you don't think so. For that to be where the reality, I just can't see it right now. To me, I'm like going, there's absolutely no way. There's absolutely no way. There's just no way. And I think that this is an expose on them, and they're being exposed. So I think this is just exposing them. And that's really the whole idea behind it. Okay.
So let's just say, for the sake of argument, there are 200 countries in the world.
Yep.
And let's say out of those 200 countries, let's just call it 50 countries do bad and terrible things to their people. And of those 50 that do bad and terrible things to the people, not only do they do that, but they do bad things to other people around, different parts of the world through proxies or, through an extended army. Do you think that it's the United States' responsibility to involve ourselves in the affairs of other countries, even though they inflict atrocities and terror on their people and other people around? Do you think it's our responsibility to police that?
I think it's a phenomenal question, Len, and I think that's a huge morality challenge and question, because when do you step in, right? I mean, you're like, what is that show? What would you do, right? There's that show. What would you do? So when do you go? What would you do? When is enough enough? Here's the reality behind it, based on what I know and what I've read and what I've been educated on and what I've studied independently. Okay. The United States was always an internal populist. I don't know the right word for it. I'm drawing a blank on it, but nationalist nation or hermit nation. It did not. I don't want to say hermit, but you know what the word I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, we're concerned with our own.
Affairs. It didn't want to be involved in the world affairs. It didn't want it. America, I feel, has been struggling since it stepped away from the British crown to get away from all this stuff, and the British crown kept its teeth in America with taxes and banking and all those things. But we were a very isolation nation. That's the word I was looking for. Okay. Not hermit. Hermit nation is more like North Korea or like Cuba, right? And we were isolated. We were an isolationist nation. We were a populist nation. We didn't want to get involved in this stuff. So, but then again, we were dragged into a lot of stuff continuously. We were asked and begged and forcibly brought into affairs that we didn't want to be involved in, and we got into them. And now we're stuck in this role. It's kind of like we've been typecasted in this role because we're so involved and so entrenched and been asked so many times. It's a hard question, because when do you say, okay, when do you say enough is enough? Because the reality is that people are going to want power. And whether you're a good person or you're a bad person, eventually, if the good people don't do anything, the bad people are going to take over. Right? Yeah. I mean, eventually what happens. And then once somebody does wake up, if it reaches that tipping point where there's more good people, or the good people are inferior to the bad people, or the bad, however you want to define good versus bad, for me, it's very simple. Do unto others as you do to yourself, and don't do unto others as you would do to yourself, right? Just if you do both of those things, maybe let's say that's the common definition that we're operating from. If at one point, the bad guys that don't follow those principles tip more into the stronger side of the category, or the majority of the category, the other side's toast, because human beings will kill each other until they get what they want, because human beings are innately selfish. So I think if you don't eventually stand up and stop an aggressor that's outwardly aggressive to you and openly aggressive to you, eventually you got to say, hey, look, bro, put your money where your mouth's at.
So I think what you have a tendency to do is put a moral lens on the United States, and then it becomes we're good and they're not. And I don't think and I'm not saying that you do that all the time, but I think when you're making an argument, so like in this situation with Israel, okay, so if we were to go just strictly through a moral lens, we would have to really tear down what Israel's doing because of all of the Palestinians that are being killed. But we don't do that. We pick and choose our morality as a nation. And so because we've decided to be allies with Israel for whatever reasons we have, I don't want to go into the history of it, but we've decided to be allies with them. And so because of that, we decide to take up for them, whereas there's, going back to my example, 49 other countries where there's atrocities going. Because earlier you said the reason why Trump decided to get into this war was to expose Iran for who they really are. And the reality is that there are a lot of other nations throughout the world that have committed atrocities on their people, and they've committed atrocities on other people, but we pick and choose who to go after. And I think, I'm not here to try to belittle the importance of strategy, because, the Middle East is a very strategic place for the United States to be. So we can argue the merits of, should we be isolationists? I would argue that since the First World War, the United States has been everything but isolationist. We have been the world's police since globalization. And the reason why we were able to go into a global economy is because the United States had the military and the economic power to do that. So I think we could probably talk for another 2 hours about just the reasons why the United States decides to pick and choose who they fight with and fight against. I think that's a completely different conversation. I don't want to bore our audience, but I think it's a question that we need to continue to just pick at every now and then and really try to tease out, because, you can make an argument that Israel has done way more to the Palestinians than the Iranians have done to their own people. And so somebody could argue for and against that. So I don't want to put that in the court of public opinion, but one could make a legitimate argument for that. And so I think we've got to be really, I want to come back to this, other times, and let's just really, dig into it from time to time. But I want to shift gears if we can, man. And we're talking about, you talked earlier about people who say great words and they can move people, but it's really the actions that matter. One guy that we've talked about who's been in the news recently is, Zohran Mamdani. And in New York, there's been 3 other people who have been elected into the primary, 2 of them which are self-prescribed Democratic Socialist of America. So we call that DSA. So I wanted to get your take on that, man. And what the whole Mamdani effect of being able to have the gravitational pull to bring other people who have controversial titles and win primaries, man. That's a pretty big deal.
Well, before I go into that, I just want to touch on one thing. And I think you do have a good point there. And I think that everyone should have that point where you said, when you talk about America, you put it in a lens of morality, right? And you're right. I do that a lot. And I think that do that because you ought to have some pride for your country or defiance for your country. But
I agree with that.
I just think that if you look at the two glasses, or if you're weighing it out, the scales, right? Mm-hmm. If you're weighing out 2 scales, I talk about America, or I take that default for America, that default position for America, because the ideal of America is you're innocent until proven guilty. But more so than that, Len, to put more weight on that, I think that if you put all the BS that America has done, and you put all the good stuff that America has done, and you put them side by side and you weigh them, I tell you right now that I firmly believe the good stuff far outweighs the bad stuff.
Okay.
And I can say that with very much confidence, because that's how I feel. That's what I've seen. That's what I've researched. That's what I've been educated on in the education system. So I think if you take that default, That's the default of America. And having spent no more time on that,
it's a strong argument. I
wanted to come from that perspective just so you kind of understand why, because you're right. I do constantly come from that perspective. And I felt it necessary so that we understand that, because
And I think that's good for debate, because you and I come from different perspectives, and we need to understand each other's baseline assumptions. Because when you understand somebody's baseline assumptions, then it can help you process the merits of their argument better. Because again, to me, any argument is not about winning or losing. It's about understanding and really having a dogged pursuit of truth. And sometimes the truth is subjective, and it can be different as it manifests itself based on somebody's lens, but ultimately it's really about seeking truth. So thank you for that, man. That helps me understand your perspective.
Yeah. Seek first to understand, right?
100%.
If everyone can take something from today, it's before you go off on your neighbor or your friend or the person that pissed you off that ran the red light around you or whatever the heck it might be, seek first to understand, right? Yep. I mean, that's just it. The Mandami thing that's going on right now, this is very interesting. But at the same time, I think it's very obvious, because I think these are cycles. And there's a lot of hysteria around it where it's like, oh my God. And if you go back and you study, these are cycles. The extremist cycles like this happen often, right? And there's a lot of, like right now, I think it's absolutely funny, the whole doom and gloom crowd with the AI stuff. And they just absolutely I can't remember his name right now, Dario and Anthropic and all the fear mongering with AI and, oh my God, and all this stuff. And then AOC jumps on the bandwagon, but then nobody can articulate a point. But the reality is 2 or 3 days later, all these guys put these, please restrict us. And then all of a sudden the free market in other countries that are not putting restrictions just absolutely smash their freaking models within 24 hours. And it's like, dude, you can't contain this kind of stuff now at this point. Someone is going to get an engineer and build their own models now. Like, you're going to have teenagers building models in their basements. Like this is what's going to happen, right? Like when you hear the guys like the chief, who's the chief of Goldman Sachs right now? It's Solomon, right? What's his name? Do you know what I'm talking about? The chief that runs Goldman Sachs right now. When you see this guy get out in the news and say, and the CEO of BlackRock and all these guys that get out in front of all this stuff right now, and they say, hey, this is between now and like 2030 or something like that is the last time that real people are going to have a shot. There you go. To make some crazy serious wealth, right? It's true, because you're going to have people that create crazy ass language models that are going to get bought by these big guys. That's what they're looking for. So with the whole getting back to what you're saying with the Mandami thing and everything, it's awesome, but it's never going to it never lasts, because eventually what happens is this is why I don't think communism and socialism ever will work in America. Okay? Because eventually these people that say, yay, this is great, and all this stuff, eventually what ends up happening is that they end up getting spoiled. And then they stop getting what they want. And they stop, like, the moment someone's internet service is out for more than 24 or 48 hours, good luck to any of those people. It's all going to crash and burn, because we've always seen it in history. It never works. It never can work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because human nature won't allow those types of things to work. Eventually what ends up happening is you're going, dude, I don't want to work, and so-and-so is.
Do you think those candidates who won the primaries will end up getting elected, and because they could actually be a part of Congress?
I mean, they may or may not be. They may. I mean, who knows? They might get elected. I mean, they might not get elected. But the reality is that you need money. And eventually when they go bankrupt and they can't get money from anywhere else, they're going to go, oh my God, because that's always what happens. It goes bankrupt. Everything always goes bankrupt.
That's always the funny.
As soon as the money goes away, it's like party. It's kind of almost like party's over. Like mom and dad came back, party's over.
That's funny that you bring that up, because it's interesting, because
that's always the end game, right?
The funny game that Gavin Newsom's trying to play right now is, on the one hand, he understands that he has to appease
say something bad about
his base. Hey, man, I told you, I'm seeking truth, man. Like, it slices both ways.
I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you, Len.
So the interesting game that he's playing right now, man, is that on the one hand, he says that the billionaire tax, he's against it. But he's a
billionaire.
He's not a billionaire, but the reason why he's against it is because many of the donors who are going to contribute to his presidential campaign are billionaires. So he's totally against that tax. But what he said, though, is he said, go ahead and vote your conscience, because if you feel that it's a bad idea, then you should vote against it. And so he's trying to play it both ways. And so here's my take on the Democratic Socialist of America movement, because Mamdani ran on free bus fare. He ran on rent freezes. He ran on like government. And they're doing those things.
They did the rent freezes. You just saw that, right? 2 years or something.
That. I'm going to come back.
Landlords are freaking out.
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing is that people in the short term love that kind of thing because of the fact that it doesn't feel like there's a price to pay, because everybody's looking at it from their own myopic perspective. And this is the thing for those of you that are in this audience that ascribe to this idea of socialism. I understand where you're coming from, because sometimes you look at these rich billionaires and they're on their yachts and they're traveling the world, and you're struggling, and it feels like you're just trying to struggle to put food on the table and to pay rent. Both of those things are true, but it's important to understand, though, is that the billionaires that put themselves in that position, who did it the right way, they took enormous risk to start a business. They spent an enormous amount of time with a lot of uncertainty. Many of them struggled for a long time getting no money, working 80 hours a week. And the market said that the product or service they put out there was good enough to give them more back than what they put in. And so they're reaping the benefits. And so many of the beautiful things that we all appreciate is on the backs of people who made tremendous amounts of sacrifices. Mm-hmm. The video that we're using to tape this conversation, the microphone we're speaking into, the internet that allows you and I that are thousands of miles away to talk in real time under a light that was invented by somebody who failed 10,000 times. There's all of these benefits that we get to live off of, whereas thousands of years ago, we're hand to mouth, and we have the luxury now to bask in the glory of all of those innovations. And the moment capitalism starts to fail and socialism starts to thrive is the same moment that incentivizes people to stop innovating. And the moment innovation stops, as a society, we start to decline. The only reason why the United States of America can have the luxury to sit in an apartment that is air conditioned and complain about the rent is because somebody took the time and the effort to invent that air conditioner, to understand what Freon meant, and to be able to have enough people to erect that building and put that building that you didn't have to build. So There's got to be a dual appreciation. Now, flip side of it is that the reason why the Democratic Socialists of America have been able to increase their level of popularity is because prices are ridiculously high in New York. Now, it all comes down to economics. It's supply and demand. You have lots of people in a confined space. So let's just say New York, for the sake of argument, let's just say they have 10 million people. Okay. And let's say 2 million of those people are really struggling to have housing. Okay. So you can cry to the government to force the landlords to freeze your rent. But here's the problem. what would happen if you went from having 2 million apartments to 3 million apartments, given the same number of people? The prices of those apartments would come down. But if you take away the builder's ability to build, then what's going to happen? They're not going to be incentivized to build those additional million apartments. So therefore, your prices are going to stay high, and they're going to get worse, because the moment you tell the builders that the rents are frozen, guess what? Freon gets more expensive, wood gets more expensive, labor gets more expensive. And as the costs go up, why are they going to spend extra money when they're not getting more money in? So this whole socialistic argument, if you really understand economics through first principles, it makes no sense. So while I have a heart for the struggling people, because I used to be one, my mom was on welfare for a few weeks and a few months when she got laid off. So I understand what it's like to go to the store and have food stamps. I understand what that life is like. But I also understood economics. And one of the reasons why I made a decision to get out of it is because I didn't want to live that way. So that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I'll wrap it up and turn it back over to you, Chris, by saying this. Understand economics and understand the difference between capitalism and socialism holistically. And I believe that if you get that understanding, you would never argue for socialism to be any part of this economic system, because no matter what, it's never worked long term anywhere.
To me, the idea is just absolutely ludicrous that anybody thinks that a human being is going to be benevolent for them, or it's just
it's not human nature. You're right.
It's just okay. I trust this guy. Like, for example, because we're talking about Mondami, the whole idea and principality of this is to think that a person or a group of a committee or whatever we're going to label it, some altruistic name, right? Mm-hmm. The Council for Secure, Prosperous of Human Beings Alliance, right? We honestly think that a group of human beings is going to have kind and non-greedy virtues and is going to be benevolent towards other people. Like, we really, really believe that. And that's what shocks me so much, because people go in the streets and rally, no kings, but then they want kings to come and look. The only king that all these people need is the king called Jesus Christ. Like, they need to go find that king, or Mohammed, or whatever your king is, and go be that king, right? But for me, it's Jesus Christ. So go find that. Go find a non-human benevolence, because you can't rely. I'm saying the word right?
Benevolence. Yeah. Benevolence.
You cannot rely on a human being. You can't. I'm sorry. You just can't. You can't, because they're selfish. So that is number one.
Selfish.
Yes. And then number two, it's very clear. And this is why it's so funny, because if you, like, for example, you just listen to AOC talk on something recently, and you just sit there and you go, they clearly, these people, they have no idea how economics work. Like you just said, Len, they don't know. They have no idea. They just think that this stuff just comes from nowhere. They just think, because here's the reality behind it. You think people are going to work for other people that don't work? That's called slavery, dude. Like, that sounds a lot like slavery to me. Hold on. I'm going to work my butt off and get the same as John down the street who doesn't work? I don't freaking think so, dude. And then that's where civil wars, because resentment it builds. And that other word that's very dangerous besides resentment, and I can't think of that word right now, but you probably know what I'm talking about. That is exactly the problem with it. So I think it's cute. I think it's funny. I think look, these guys have no teeth, because eventually what ends up happening is it all collapses. Look, it all collapses. And then for anybody to sit here and think they're better, they could do communism better than Chairman Mao, or do communism and socialism better than Stalin or Lenin or any of these guys, you're freaking fooling yourselves.
Yeah, I agree.
But here's the sad reality behind it. At the end of the day, all of these, I won't say the word, but all these people, I want to call them the MOFO word. All these people that do this stuff and the people that champion and go, blah, 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 right? You know who you're talking about. You're absolutely right, Len. What they ought to do is they ought to go listen and go watch the Star Spangled Banner. Because they ought to know that there are boys and men that piled on top of dead bodies, their sisters, their brothers, their neighbors, their cousins, their moms, or whatever, their uncles, they all piled on top of each other to keep that flag standing up while the British were bombing the crap out of it. Keep that flag up. Is this flag still standing? Is the flag still standing? You know how that flag stood up. That flag didn't stand up because it was stuck in the ground or cemented in the ground. It stood up because people kept dying on it to hold it up. And then when the bodies got too much, they would pull the dead bodies away and more people would sit on it to keep the flag up. So every single day, Mandami should get up and kiss the freaking ground in New York and thank the people that died there, that he'll never know. For him to do some radical pet project with the city of the purse, with the money and the taxes that him and his constituents and his allies will never understand how to create and never will, because they're not business people and entrepreneurs. They're terrorists. They're hijackers of a system. And that's okay. Because see, the reality is they know that stuff. They know our system is free, open, and honest. And one thing I can tell you about a free and open and honest system, it always exposes the crooks. And I don't mean crooks and terrorists in the normal sense that you might, he called it. But no, I don't mean that. Terrorists to the system that produces equality for people. Because communism and socialism doesn't create equality for people. It creates slavery for people. It creates restrictions for people. It takes away. And see, that's what these guys ought to do. They ought to kiss the freaking ground that they can even try to do their pet projects. Because if they tried to do this crap in any other country, they'd be killed and executed. And you know it, Len. If Mandami tried to do this stuff in Iran, if America operated the way Iran did, he'd be killed on day one. And you know it. Everybody knows it. And that's why I think it'll never work. Because at the end of the day, we know that crap doesn't work. And there's no heart and soul in the American culture to ever accept that. And our system will automatically root it out. I got a little passionate there, Len, but no,
I think
it had to be. Yeah, that's just my perspective on it. I don't think they're going to win because I don't think they're ever going to take. They might, and these things have happened. If you go back in American history, you've always had these turmoils where all of a sudden they try to do it here, they try to bring it here. There's a lot of rich and powerful people. You saw that guy that just got arrested. The FBI took him down. I don't remember his name right now, but he was like 10 years for the last 10 years. He's been sponsoring. He's a billionaire, sponsoring socialist and communist groups inside the United States to usurp the United States. I'll tell you his name right now. He just got. It was a big thing. And then I'll turn it over to you, Len.
Okay, so while you're looking that up, tell me his name once you find it. But I want to respond to what you're saying. So I think that people who are charismatic, like Mamdani,
Jody Evans, co-founder of Code Pink, and Neville Roy Singham, founder of ThoughtWorks. So I don't think it's the Jody Evans, it's the Neville Roy Singham.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Grand jury. He presented evidence to the grand jury, which has issued subpoenas seeking bank records and other financial documents from an organization in Singham's network. Federal prosecutors use the grand jury subpoenas as an investigation tool to complete the documents. So this guy right here has been sponsoring Marxism and all this crap in the United States for 10 plus years. He's tied to China, all this stuff. They caught him. They took him down. See, all this stuff, it doesn't work here. We don't want that crap here. We don't see it. But anyways, I'll turn it over to you, Len.
And I agree that long term, we don't want it. But I think the challenge that every society has is there's going to be larger numbers of people who struggle than those who are prosperous. And those large numbers of people who struggle in a democratic society, in a democratic country, we run the risk of widespread ignorance. And so what happens is that because we are driven by our own desires, our own personal needs. And we couple that with not really understanding what it is that we really, really want and how to get it. Because when I say we're lazy, what I mean is human beings are inherently lazy. I'm inherently lazy.
All of us are.
Right. But I have something that stops me from being lazy because I prefer having a better, more prosperous life. So the price I pay for that is getting or, subjecting my laziness. But in the situation where people don't have the incentive or the desire to subject their laziness, which is perfectly fine. Everybody has the ability to make their own choices. Here's though the consequence of that choice. What happens is that we rely on other people to tell us how to think, and we rely on other people to tell us how to feel and what to believe. And what happens is we open ourselves up to be victims of propaganda.
Yep.
And so people like Mamdani who say, okay, look, I saw him doing an interview and he's so intelligent. I don't think he's inherently a bad guy. Like, I don't think you and I don't look at him as, okay, he's a socialist and so therefore he's bad or he has malevolent intent. I don't believe that. Now, he may prove me wrong.
Is that the opposite of benevolent?
Benevolent and malevolent. Yeah. So malintent and benevolent.
Malintent and benevolent.
Yeah.
I like that. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I don't believe that he's inherently a bad guy. What I do believe is that he allows his charisma and he's a wonderful, well-spoken, charismatic speaker, and he's also a phenomenal marketer. So what he did is he went to some apartment complexes in New York and took cakes and said happy rent freeze, and then he cut the cake and distributed to people, and they had the camera crew there. The people are like, man, thank you so much. This moratorium on rent, I'm on a fixed income. Thank you so much. And it's a heartwarming story. And so if I didn't understand that that's propaganda, I would be on the side of like, oh my gosh, he's doing amazing things for the people and all of this. Now, here's the thing. Politicians do this all the time. They only tell us what they want us to hear because they understand that the overwhelming majority of us will not take the time to fact check them, to research, to figure out our own position based on our own set of beliefs, values, and assumptions. And because of that, we all end up as a society becoming the victims of sheeple. People who just follow whatever they're told because they choose to believe somebody. I'll wrap up with this example. So there are two comedians, right? And so one comedian on a completely different show was like a right-leaning comedian. There's another comedian who's on a completely different show, left-leaning comedian, right? And so the right-leaning comedian goes to this Biden rally and he's like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about this policy X, policy Y, policy Z. And they said, hey, that Biden created. And they're like, oh, that's just a terrible, terrible policy. And it's like, well, that's actually Trump's policy. Mm-hmm. And then another comedian in a different group's like, hey, what do you think about all the people who were deported by Trump? There were this many people that were deported and this many people that were deported. What do you think about that? And they were like, oh, that's terrible. He's doing all he can. But actually those numbers were under Obama. And then they switched. And then what happened, right. My point in bringing this up is that when you're not educated about your own position, you align with who your hero is and you change the narrative to justify how you feel about a policy based on that person's stance. So if it's a person that you disagree with, no matter what they say or what they do, you will disagree with it because it's that person. Mm-hmm. And likewise, if it's a person that you agree with, no matter what they say or what they do, you will always agree with it because you've made it in your mind to agree with that person. It's a very interesting thing that my wife taught me. It's called cognitive dissonance. And it's a fancy word that says, I have a certain world view, right? And everything I look at through the world is through those lenses or those glasses. Now, something can come in and interrupt that pattern and it shakes me up. Now, if it's a person who's really seeking to learn and be objective and really search for truth, they'll wrestle with that cognitive dissonance to try to come up with a more truthful, aligned narrative. But the overwhelming majority of people, unfortunately, Chris, when they encounter cognitive dissonance, they barrel right through it because they just want to make sure that their narrative is correct. That's why I know that as this channel gets bigger, there are going to be people that hate what you say that sometimes and love what you say at other times. There are going to be people that hate what I say sometimes and love what I say at other times. Here's the reason why. Because one thing that I can tell you, I won't speak for you, but the one thing that I can tell you that my ultimate goal, as I mentioned earlier, is I want to know truth, man. I want to seek truth. I don't want to just be right for argument's sake. And so there are some things that Trump does that are good. My baseline of thinking is that he is a self-centered narcissist who does what he does for the benefit of himself and other people in his sphere that bow down to him. That's my frame of reference. However, I'm not going to be so blindsided and myopic to say that everything he says and everything he does is a lie and bad. I think that's objectively not true. And I just think, that I think our world would be better if we had more people who are really seeking out the truth and can live with two conflicting, confrontational realities at the same time. Like, I don't particularly like him as a person, but that doesn't mean that that everything he says or does is inherently bad. Right. And
I get you.
Yeah.
And that's, I think you could say the same for anybody. I mean, if you look at Joseph Stalin and you study Joseph Stalin, I'm a big Robert Greene fan. I know you've read a lot of his stuff. And, as you look at Joseph Stalin, he switched, he changed. I mean, Joseph Stalin was a very congeal, very nice, very comforting, very warm person. And then when he got into this power and did what he got, he became this totally different, he became this monster, right? Yeah. And that just, again, I think just speaks to the ideal or to the truth of human nature. And that is that, look, the Constitution is genius because it governs human nature. And when you look at socialism and communism here, you're relying on a group of people to have this ultra realistic view and be gods, so to speak, and control the means of production. I mean, all you have to do right now is look at the way city councils are ran and look at California politics and look at left-leaning blue states that are in debt and look at the way these people run these states and realize and understand, bro, you don't want more of that. You really, really don't. And I think the most telling thing is I just recently saw this. There was an exchange between J.D. Vance and Bill Maher. And Bill Maher openly said, he said, the people that I vote for, I can't get them to come and sit down with me. Obama, Mondami, you name it, the list goes on. I can't get these people to come and talk to me. But the conservative viewpoints and the libertarian viewpoints and the imposing viewpoints, they all come and talk. They all want to come and talk to me. They all want to, as he said it, they come and take their lashings, right? Doesn't that tell you something? Because if you don't want to come and even talk to the people that vote for you, that have power, here's the problem. The reason why they don't want to come and talk to someone like Bill Maher is because they know Bill Maher is going to have an intellectual, non-BS, non-spin zone conversation with them and ask them pointed questions. And that's the biggest problem. Is all these romantic gestures and all these great terms of endearment and virtues that we throw out there on the opposing side that want the free buses and the government control and the government be bigger and all these things. then when they ask the tough questions of how are you going to do it, that's when they all fall apart, because ultimately they always have the same solution. We're going to take more money from the rich people, and we're going to control prices, and we're going to keep things like this.
Somebody's got to pay for that.
Have you seen the DMV lately? Name one, name all, any of them. And then furthermore, have you seen the industries that the government has propped up? Mm-hmm. The auto industry. I would say
the only industry that the government's done well, and you could probably argue it, postal. I think they've done pretty well.
The postal service sucks, Len. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a UPS and a FedEx.
No. I'm talking local mail. Like, I'm not talking international.
But I think look at a degree,
like cost wise, I mean, like I know if I put something in the mail, if I send it to you, it's going to get there, and they're going to do it at a fraction of the price.
Largely, but it's again,
I'm trying to find good in something generally that I see as bad. Okay, that's the point.
Look. At the end of the day, the postal service is great. By and large, I think the postal service works. I really do, but at the same time, it is hemorrhaging and losing money. So, and I don't, and who knows who knows the real reason behind that? Mm-hmm. The reality is that government programs and government run anything don't work, 100%. Because at the end of the day, there has to be an incentive, because at the end of the day, the operator is the human being. So when a Mandami gets up here and says, happy rent control, you're absolutely right, Len, that is propaganda, because that's just like, I have a cold. Here's some Vicks NyQuil. That just masks the symptom. Mm-hmm. Instead, what he ought to be doing is going, here's a program that the government's going to help to pay for, because this is a relevant job and a relevant career that's going to pay you $150,000, $200,000 in the next 15, 20 years. Into the next, what I mean by that is into the next 10, 15 years. See, that's what the government ought to be doing. It's like when I tell you AOC was speaking the other day, and AOC was speaking and saying, because she was talking about the CHIPS Act, right? And they're going, because of all this stuff now with these AI companies and the data centers and she was saying, these data centers are so evil and they're stealing everybody's electricity and they're making the prices higher and and all these things about, because, and at the time, data centers have been around since long before she was even in Congress. Like, data centers have been around for 20 years. They're just proliferating because AI requires a lot of compute power.
Right.
Okay. But what she fails to understand on the other side of all of this stuff is when you look at it and you go, she's talking about, well, this is the best thing when she said this, when we passed the CHIPS, because the person's, well, the CHIPS Act, right? But when we passed the CHIPS Act, right, we didn't think that it was going to have all this effect on all these data centers. I'm going, you do not sound like you know anything right now. Wait a minute. Aren't you this ultra realistic politician that knows all these things and is going to save us from the evils of capitalism? You mean to tell me you didn't know that this was going to happen? Isn't it your job to have forethought? Isn't it your job to sit there and go, I wonder what will happen if we pass this legislation? I wonder what will happen if this hames. See, that's the problem. All these
democratic, look at the world through cause and effect,
dude. That's all these, all of these politicians, they don't play the long game in the chess game because that's the human condition. You don't think about the long consequences of the East India. I'm probably naming it wrong, but back in England, the East India Shore Trading Company, right? When they were allowing to do, it's a fascinating thing, Len. You probably know what I'm talking about. You study it. Were they allowed to do leverage or buyouts, sell debt in the form of the government debt to citizens, right? In the form of stocks, right? And they did. I forget the technical term for it, and they did this, and eventually it created these bubbles, right? And these debt bubbles. They don't ever play the long game here with this, the unintended consequences. So at the end of the day, it's a friend in need is a pest indeed, right? so having, that's why you see alliances get, like, going back a little bit when we were talking about, that's why you see America get in trouble with alliances, or anybody get in trouble with these alliances, because all of a sudden your friend in need, you're aligned to them, so you got to back them up if they get in trouble. And you're like, crap, bro, you're doing bad crap, and I got to back you up no matter what. So, and I think that's another reason why Trump hates NATO so much, because we constantly have to be messy. We have no choice, Len. We always have to be messy because we're in these unilateral treaties with people. And then the people that we're with treaties with, when it comes time to get their hands dirty, they don't want to get their hands dirty. It's just like socialists and communists. Everything's going to be great until we got to roll up their sleeves and spend spend their own money or make their own resources. And that's where this all crashes and burns. So
I agree.
I wish we had more time, Len, because I think we have a few other things we're going to talk about today, but,
yeah, I think we can table them till next week. There's so much depth to the conversations that we've been having, man. And so,
and I don't want to skirt a lot of that, because I do want to talk about the last couple things that we did,
for sure.
Because I have some stuff that I actually looked at. I thought we were going to go more long into that, but I can. Let's make this promise to each other.
All right.
Unless anything groundbreaking happens, we're not going to talk about Iran next week.
Okay, deal.
Unless
I have a feeling something groundbreaking is going to happen, man. So, but yes, we're
going to keep it to 15 minutes next week
for sure. Let's do that.
All right,
for sure.
But outside of that, again, the whole premise behind this is walking away from this and saying, yeah, like, you need to have these conversations and find someone or a group that you can have these conversations with, like we said earlier, because we understand the baseline. We're seeking to understand the baseline so that I can essentially do a really cool magic trick and kind of jump into Len's body and see the world through his eyes for free. Because that's really what we're trying to do. And obviously, yes, at the same time, seek truth, because there is a lot of BS going on backsides. So Len, I'll throw it over to you to close us out.
Absolutely. I would say, to jump on Chris's point, is understand the person that you're talking to, their baseline, so you can gather a clear understanding of their perspective. And then also think for yourself. Look at the world through cause and effect and first principles. When you look at a cause, this is something that's being done. Why is that something being done? That's the cause. What's the effect? That thing gets done. What happens as a result of that? And what is the link of logic that goes from cause to effect to cause to effect? And if you carry that logical path to its end, at least as far as you can cognitively think about it, it gives you much more of a holistic view of how the world works and also why people do what they do. If you look at the world just through emotions, you will never come to a logical conclusion, because those two things cannot carry the same space. They can't exist in the same space. So find people that you disagree with, look at the world through cause and effect, and you will have so much more clarity in your life. And that's one of the things that we try to exhibit here. Even though we ultimately disagree with each other, we can still have civil conversations with each other. So if you like the content, please like it. If you have an idea, please share. And certainly if you have ideas that you want us to talk about, put those comments on there, and we look for ideas for new content. With that being said, Chris, it's always a pleasure, man. Have a great one till next time.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.